It has been another gigantic week, and we are counting down to the next epic event for SpaceX's first version 3 vehicle, and we finally have breaking news from just hours ago with Flight 12 launch timelines published and referenced by the FAA. With that, of course, an epic Falcon Heavy spectacle, Amazon ramping those launches up dramatically on multiple vehicles just this week, and a magnetoplasma dynamic thruster. Yeah, this is a bigger deal than I first thought.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
Hey, Marcus House with you here, and as you may recall, SpaceX released a brand new 25-minute video packed with all sorts of goodies around the Starship program last week, and although I packed a bunch of stuff in last Saturday's video, we had so much more to explore. This documentary, it seems, may well just be the first of a series of new content that will go into much greater detail about how the Starship infrastructure is evolving. Something that I think was particularly wonderful in this first one was a more personal inside experience with the incredible team members going about these tasks, and you can really feel the pressure that comes with each and every test in the campaign for each vehicle. Imagine being one of the crew here in the control room behind each event. It's easy enough on the outside, I guess, to look at these huge beasts without thinking a great deal about the team inside. Out of sight, out of mind it may be with the routine that we tend to have looking in from outside, but this has been anything but. I mean, for me, just after watching it, it's all given me a fresh sense of excitement, I guess, as we now count down to the first launch of a version 3 Starship using version 3 engines on the brand new Pad 2. It's all, of course, redesigned from the ground up to meet the demands of everything version 3 and further down the track, version 4 and onward. To prepare for the first full stacked integration testing, there certainly seems to have been an increase in action around the ship's quick disconnect arm on the launch tower, with multiple high-speed retraction tests being done throughout the week. Along with that, the quick disconnect interface has also been seen doing several rounds of tests. The tank farm first pushed propellants up the tower and out of the tri-vent located at the back, as you can see here, thanks to NSF's live cameras. Once the lines are nicely chilled, they open the valves to let it flow further up to the quick disconnect. You can see the pipe getting frosty with this process. Now check this out. We can see the doors on the front of the interface opening. These cover and protect the open ports on the front from weather when not in use and from debris during the launches. SpaceX looked to be simulating a full launch rehearsal here. The 2 booster quick disconnects retracted rapidly, followed by all 20 booster clamps. At the same time, they retracted the ship quick disconnect interface, closing the doors and swinging the arm out of the way. All very good signs that SpaceX are getting close to finally doing some full stack activities. The tank farm that supplies all of this propellant was undergoing plenty more changes this week. As I had touched on in the previous video, the crane had been moved over to Pad 1, where it was being reconfigured to lift the old, smaller tanks out. 2 of those, in fact, were already removed last week on Friday, but then another 2 were removed on Saturday, leaving the last 2 to be removed on Sunday. They were trucked over to the port right after each was removed. 5 of those tanks have been used for methane, but the 6th tank on the end was never actually plumbed in as far as we could ever tell. All of these were originally installed as a replacement to SpaceX's custom-built methane vertical tanks. The 2 on the end were supposed to have been used for methane, but were never used for a number of reasons that I won't bother going into today. Instead, SpaceX needed to build this separate methane farm as a quick solution. Anyway, with their propellant needs significantly raised now, these small tanks need to be upgraded by much larger ones. Now, with the vehicles for Flight 12 still both hidden behind closed doors, we don't have any new detail on how close these are to being rolled back out. Given that SpaceX has had issues with the booster static fires being aborted early due to water deluge-related issues, we are still waiting to see if there will be another static fire planned for the Super Heavy or if they will just push forward into the full load test. What we do know, thanks to this breaking news from just hours ago, is that Starship Test Flight 12 is scheduled to launch as soon as Tuesday afternoon on May 12, thanks to the FAA posting this on Friday. With that, we see back updates right through to May 18, with a new trajectory flying it between Mexico and the Cayman Islands. So in a little over a week, we could see the beast roaring away into the sky once again. Now, we also have information for future vehicles too. The final section of Booster 20 was rolling out here on Sunday, and with this being the last section of the methane tank, there was just one single stacking operation remaining to join the two sections of the vehicle together. Once the booster is joined, they can clear it from the turntable and make way for Booster 21 to start its stacking. Speaking of, its suspected flight partner Ship 41 has had its common dome arrive just this week, which we had spotted through the Mega Bay door. It's nice to see it actually, because usually SpaceX have that door closed. Now, jumping over to Massey's, a new test article appeared this week and was installed into the old nose cone testing cell, as we could see with Avid Space's live cameras. Shaun went out there to pick up some new close-ups, and as we can see, it appears to be a liquid oxygen header tank for a Super Heavy. This looks like an interesting test, and as always, thanks to you awesome subscribers being here, we can pick up all this detail, so thank you. Hopefully, some future RGV aerial photography views from above will make some sense of the testing going on here. SpaceX must be wanting to do some more checks on this to make sure that there is no failure point that could stop the full stack from launching. When you are dealing with the largest rocket ever made, it must be absolutely nerve-wracking. I guess because we've been watching this for so long, it's easy to forget just how much of a monstrous vehicle this is. That's backed up by the Starship winning 2 Guinness World Records, of course. The rocket itself won for being the largest, most powerful rocket in history, and it continues to get bigger into the future. Along with that though, the Mechazilla Tower has also got its own record for being the largest rocket launch tower in history. It comes in at a massive 146 meters tall. For anyone out there quite new to this story, the scale that we are seeing here is just the start of what is required to transport millions of tons throughout the solar system. Mars and beyond may seem a little aspirational at this point, but once these are flying daily from several launch sites, reality hopefully soon starts to morph into that dream. It has been very nice in this documentary to see SpaceX summarise the milestones completed to get to this point with all that neat footage included. Flight 1's goal was just to make it off the pad and away from the launch infrastructure, and they learned some pretty epic lessons there, such as how the plume from the world's most powerful rocket would react to only a concrete pad. With this new awesome footage showing that resulting mess, it was clear they needed a much more robust design. The water-cooled steel plate system was installed within months, and when Flight 2 had ascended with all 33 engines, it was also able to demonstrate the second new addition, hot staging. Flight 3 made it all the way through the boost back burn, Flight 4 did the first soft water splashdown, and then yes, Flight 5 with that very first attempt had brought Super Heavy Booster 12 right back to be caught by the same tower that it took off from just 8 minutes earlier. I can't wait to see that again. Now, I thought this was really neat too. Joe here, who is Vice President of Starship Engineering, explained the reason behind Booster 18's early demise in November last year, and it seems to have ultimately come down to a failure in their nitrogen pressing system which took out the side of the booster.
Sure hope it works.
Fast forwarding to Booster 19, which introduced Jenna Lowe, the Senior Management of Starship Operations, we now have a very good idea what a test day looks like for the team. They put Booster 19 through a bunch of different tests throughout the day, and with this documentary we are taken into the control room to listen to some of those communication callouts as they fill up the booster and monitor the data coming in. That leads to the activation of the 13 thrust rams below the booster, and we can even see the accumulated ice falling. All systems passed and the propellant was offloaded. Now, an event like this lasts about 12 hours from the beginning of propellant loading all the way to the end with detanking. At this point, Booster 19 was ready to go back to the bay to receive its first set of Raptor 3 engines, and also where we caught up with Jacob McKenzie, the Vice President of Raptor. This is terrific because we got quite the experience running through the Raptor engine warehouse, and look at how many version 3 Raptors are already stocked up here for future flights. Jacob was also kindly demonstrating himself as the human for scale here. You can really see the amount of simplification that has gone into this new version of the engine, with all the experience gained from producing and launching almost 600 Raptor 2 engines right up to the final Starship Flight Test 11. Raptor 3 looks like an absolute masterpiece of engineering. They want this engine production line so smooth and the engine itself so reliable that it can be simply reused like an engine would be on a commercial airliner. Essentially, they want frequent launches and very little human interaction or inspection needed. Now, I had a bunch of you asking more about the aborted static fires and damage caused to the engines. I'll come right back to that, but first, a big thanks to Outskill for sponsoring today's video. The pace of change right now, especially around AI, is hard to keep up with, and that is exactly where Outskill comes in. It's an AI-focused education platform built to help you apply a number of tools in your work, not just understand it in theory. They have already reached over 10 million people in more than 100 countries, and it is completely free to join. Outskill's 2-day live AI mastermind is happening this weekend, running across 2 full days with 16 hours of training, all designed for a global audience. This pulls together insights from over 100 companies like Microsoft and Nvidia, companies who have actually built extremely useful systems through this AI boom. Here, the goal is simple: to help you understand the real gaps in this rapidly evolving space and increase your earning potential by implementing these tools where it actually makes sense to. In just those 16 hours, you'll learn how to build AI agents that can plan, execute, and report for you, automate workflows that run while you're sleeping, and connect tools like Sheets and Notion into real systems. You know, stuff that saves hours every week while getting a genuine edge at work. On top of that, you'll pick up over $5,000 worth of bonuses, including a full AI prompt Bible, a personalized AI toolkit builder, and a roadmap to monetize what you're learning. In fact, right after registering, you'll even get access to their AI survival hackbook, which breaks down the major AI shifts coming and how to stay ahead. With a 4.9 out of 5 rating on Trustpilot, a huge number of people are already getting value out of it. So if you want to stay ahead, the link is in the description, or you can scan the QR code right there to get registered. Thank you, Outskill. Okay, so back to the aborted static fires and damage caused to the engines. Booster 19's first round of testing was done with only 10 engines equipped, and as we had learned, an abort was called, followed by a fast shutdown. With a runtime of just 2.135 seconds, it seems like 2 of these 3 gasifiers within the deluge farm, which are used to run the top ridge of the flame diverter, had sensors that had tripped. They did still get much of the data that they wanted in this test, and of course, the booster was still standing. The problem was, as a result of that fast shutdown, which is extremely hard on the engines, 5 of the 10 had certainly taken damage, and to be safe, they stripped all 10 off and replaced them with engines previously designated to the next Booster 20 in line. Along with those, the remaining 23 engines were installed to continue on, with the full 33 engine static fire test to follow. That really is beautiful footage, but here the system had aborted even earlier at 1.88 seconds due to a water deluge sensor issue. This time, however, it was within one of the buckets either side of the flame diverter. Luckily, this time the Raptor engines didn't need to do that brutal fast shutdown, so we don't believe SpaceX damaged any more engines in this test. In other words, as far as we know, the booster appears to be in good health. Although you can run tests on every part of the system itself, sadly, there is no predicting what kind of environment it's going to be when it's all tied together into the fury that comes with all 33 engines lit. So yeah, I've got to tell you, the whole documentary, you can really feel that emotion and also get a sense of how nerve-wracking those tests were. There's that disappointment that testing didn't go fully to plan, but also overwhelming relief because everything is still standing so that they can try again. It certainly rings true to their saying, only the paranoid survive. On a brighter note, of course, Ship 39 firing all 6 of its engines for the full 60-second duration looked perfect, giving SpaceX the best test yet, with loads of data flowing in to show how well the version 3 Raptor and vehicle interact with one another. We were also obviously waiting the first epic Falcon Heavy flight to launch since mid-October of 2024. Yeah, I can't quite believe that it really has been over a year and a half since we've last seen those 3 Falcon boosters joined together for one of these epic missions. SpaceX needed to first scrub last minute on Monday's attempt due to weather, and we were left there looking over neat images by the awesome Greg Scott as we patiently awaited the next attempt on Wednesday.
1, ignition, and liftoff. Go Falcon Heavy, go Viasat.
Yes, we were off again with those 27 engines roaring away in unison to push this beast out of the atmosphere. This had a brand new center core booster number 1098. It then had 2 reused boosters for the sides, booster 1072 on its second flight and 1075 for its 22nd. Now, to me, it almost seems bizarre that this is only flight number 12 for Falcon Heavy overall. Indeed, since that first breathtaking demo mission in early 2018, there has been less need to launch Falcon Heavy than I think any of us expected. That is largely due to the incredible success of Falcon 9, but fear not, based on the many Space Force missions in the Falcon Heavy schedule, we should be seeing this launching more frequently over the next few years. In this case, of course, the powerful triple-core rocket was carrying the Viasat 3 satellite into a geosynchronous transfer orbit. I will say I'm super happy that this was a mission launched late in the morning because with Falcon Heavy, we also get treated to a currently quite rare double return to launch site spectacle. Here we were coming up to that glorious side booster separation. The two were both doing their full boost back burn there, making their way side by side right back to the Cape. This time though, they were coming into target landing zone 2 as well as the new landing zone 40. In the meantime, there is the stage separation from the center core, leaving the upper stage to take the satellite the rest of the way to its designated orbit. These are hefty satellites, by the way, and that is why this brand new center core booster number 1098 was on its one and only mission. Yes, that burned every bit of propellant remaining before separation and was simply left to be expended in the ocean. That, by the way, is why this one had no legs attached, unlike the side boosters. Speaking of, check out these views as they ripped back into the lower atmosphere. The landing burn engine ignition there for both, and wow, have I missed this view. Goodness, even after all this time, that still seems like science fiction turned reality to me. Now, the second stage had a complex set of burns for this mission. Engine cut off there for the initial orbit placement, but there were still another 2 lengthy burns to take it all the way up to its geosynchronous transfer orbit. The second burn went for almost 90 seconds here, and then they went into a super lengthy coast phase, coming back well over 4 hours later to kick off that third burn, which lasted a little over 40 seconds. So yes, after nearly 5 hours after liftoff, the satellite was finally deployed. This one is going to add more than a terabit per second of added capability, and it is also the final addition to the Viasat 3 constellation, which has significantly expanded the broadband capacity over the Asia-Pacific region. Along with that, we had a handful of Starlink missions with Falcon 9. Group 1716 was off from Vandenberg Space Force Base on Sunday morning. Booster 1088 was touching down for its 15th time there with some stable daylight views. Then we had Group 1736 next up on Wednesday evening from the same pad, but this time with Booster 1093 heading down for its 13th landing. That just left Group 1038 across the country at Space Launch Complex 40 on Friday afternoon. This was flight and landing number 31 for Booster 1069. Now, we have Amazon finally ramping up their LEO launches. United Launch Alliance sent another stack of their satellites with Atlas V on Monday evening. This took off from Space Launch Complex 41, of course, and interestingly, this was a record for ULA. They completed this mission with a faster turnaround time at Slick 41 than they ever have before. Their previous launch, also with Atlas V, was on April the 4th, so this beats their previous best by nearly 3 days. ULA confirmed that all 29 satellites were successfully deployed, and this is just a highly sped up view of their animated graphics showing us what was loosely going on at the time. Just 2 days later on Thursday though, another 32 LEO satellites were on their way, but this time via Ariane 6 in the 4-booster configuration. This was only the second dedicated Ariane 6 flight for Amazon's constellation, and is also just the second time that we have seen it fly in the most powerful setup. They were cleanly deployed into low Earth orbit at around 465 kilometers in altitude after a nearly 2-hour mission. So yeah, Amazon managed to send up 61 satellites just this week, which is certainly the most they ever have over such a period. That was also 3 launches this past month, and right now they have just over 300 satellites up there. They really need to continue ramping up that launch frequency if they want that planned constellation of more than 3,200. Originally, the deadline with the FCC was to have the first full set up by July 30 this year, but back in January, Amazon requested an extension that would give them until July 30 of 2028. I don't think I've seen any resolution to that request, but regardless, to even consider that, they've booked a bunch of Falcon 9 launches along with all the others, and obviously have a long way to go. We've also had another update on the Blue Moon Mark 1 lunar lander with this image. Here, it had just completed its modal testing. They used sensors to measure how this lander, named Endurance, will respond to launch conditions. As you can see, to do this they had it mounted on both the New Glenn Flight Launch Vehicle Separation System and a GS2 payload adapter, just to make the setup as close as real flight conditions as possible. This lander is massive, as you can clearly see thanks to the humans for scale there in the bottom right of this frame. It will be much bigger than anything previously landed on the moon's surface if it does indeed make it on the first attempt. Of course, we are still eagerly awaiting an estimated launch date for this, but there is uncertainty right now how far away this may be. The magnificent New Glenn took off and nailed that landing on Jacqueline for the second time almost 2 weeks ago, of course, but since the second stage partially failed to get into the correct orbit, the investigation is still ongoing, so we're hoping that this isn't going to hold up the lunar lander mission for long. With that though, they have shared their BE-7 flight engine number 3, completing its hot fire testing before being integrated on the next lunar lander in the queue. That's on the way to their Lunar Plant 1 facility to prepare to be integrated into that vehicle. Speaking of engines, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory has just shared this footage of a prototype lithium-fed magnetoplasmodynamic or MPD thruster. JPL say that with further development, thrusters like this could be part of a nuclear electric propulsion system powering human missions to Mars. This runs on lithium metal vapor, which is pretty wild, and it achieved power levels beyond the highest power electric thrusters on any current spacecraft. This is the first time in the United States that an electric propulsion system has operated at power levels this high, reaching up to 120 kilowatts. Apparently, during the 5 ignitions, the tungsten electrode at the thruster's center was glowing bright white, reaching over 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit or 2,800 Celsius. Because electric propulsion uses up to 90% less propellant than chemical rockets, if you mix something like this with high energy production such as nuclear, you can make much larger vehicles driven by this highly efficient method. A lithium-fed MPD thruster is actually technology that has been looked over since way back in the 1960s, so it isn't really a new idea, but obviously never flown on an operational spacecraft. Now, just for reference, 120 kilowatts is over 25 times the power of the thrusters on the Psyche spacecraft, and that has the highest power electric thruster on anything out there by NASA. Hopefully, we're going to see one of these on a real mission in the near future, but solar panels are certainly not going to cut it. It is time to go much bigger. So there we go, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit subscribe so we get to keep making them. If you want to continue with more space goodness, check out this video here next. Thanks for watching all this way through as always. I'll catch you next weekend.